Brilliant. So welcome everyone to our afternoon FBS chat. Today I'm really pleased to have Dr. Rachel Gillibrand with us. Rachel in one of her workshops at the UK ASFP conference in Bath last year, talking about the solution-focused approach, hypnotherapy, and how solution-focused questions affected the brain and the way the brain worked, which was really fascinating. So I'm really pleased. So maybe tell us a bit about yourself and how you came across the solution-focused approach.
Sure, yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It's really nice meeting you last year as well. Yes, so my background is in psychology. Pretty straightforward route, I guess. Did my undergraduate at Cardiff and postgraduate at Southampton, and spent some years as a lecturer. My interests were always in a mix of health psychology and child development. So my doctorate was in supporting young people as they transition in hospital from pediatric to adult clinics. So I guess it all kind of comes together with that piece of work. And then it's about 5 years ago, and I was looking for change, something new. Been in the system a while, and I stumbled across courses in solution-focused hypnotherapy that were running in Bristol, near where I was living. And I thought that's kind of interesting. And they included a fair bit on the solution-focused approach. And also I talked about the use of hypnosis in the work. And so I spent a year studying that, and I found it really worked well with my existing skills. And the solution-focused approach I was starting to use with clients then when I'd completed that course, but also I was using it in my work at the university. I was using it in supervisions with students and, in kind of mentoring capacity. And I found that things would change very rapidly. And I got hooked. And so I started following usual crew, Evan George, Chris Iverson, Elliot Connie, all the guys who are kind of out there on social media and really plugging away at what they do. And I decided to incorporate it into my practice beyond, if you like, what I've been taught in solution-focused hypnotherapy and into what we would call SFBT, and really using that with my clients. And today, I would say, 99% of my work is SFBT or SFH. Occasionally, I don't use the technique, but that is really quite rare now. And I find it so rewarding. I find it just one of those things that delivers change. And it appeals to the positive side of me, that we are looking for resources and we're looking to talk with people about how they can make changes and what they'd like to see. And for me, that's refreshing and empowering at the same time. I feel the clients are the expert in their lives now, and it's just down to me, like Elliot says, to ask the next question.
So the presentation, the really brilliant presentation you gave in Bath was it was a study you did, and you've got some slides which would be really great to see, and maybe you could talk us through it, because it is fascinating for anyone who wants to understand the difference making or asking the types of questions that we do. What difference it makes? How you see it working.
So, this research was interesting because I was looking for the evidence base in the work. And there's a lot of research carried out into the effectiveness of solution-focused conversation, how it can help people with a full range, isn't it? I mean, it can be from anxiety, depression, through to kind of substance use. to relationships, to encouraging children in the classroom. You know, it's been applied to so many different arenas, and I was really interested to know what was happening in the brain when this conversation was taking place. And I had a good look around, and I didn't find a lot of work on it. And I was talking to somebody at work, Hardeep. She was the main technician in the labs when I was at the university, and we were talking about how you could work things out in the brain. And she said, well, have you tried this? And she showed me this fairly small bit of kit that you can pop on your head. Looks like some kind of, I suppose, a nerdy wedding fascinator, if you like. It doesn't have many feathers or sequins, but you know, why not? Let's put them on next time. And she said, you know, look, you just pop this on and you wire it up to the laptop, and you can see what's going on in the brain. It's virtually real time, you know, give or take a few microseconds or whatever. You know, you can see what's going on. And so I played with that for a little bit, and I thought, I like this. And I talked about it with a few people that I work with in the solution focused world. And I thought, let's put together a little project. And the timing was perfect. The university had some little pots of money just to support some research projects at the time. And the goal was to encourage students to take part in kind of real world research, so they would learn some skills, you know, and kind of working with real people and ethics, safeguarding, you know, but also kind of collecting data in a real world where it's kind of messy, you know, things don't work first time and you can't get things to connect, you know, the usual stuff. And so I was able to employ a few students as well, and they were to get some, some real life skills in this. I had a month to put the whole thing together. The funding had to be spent, you know, by the end of the academic year, and I thought, oh, good. So I put together about an inch thick of paperwork in order to get this study approved, you know, the protocol and procedures and so on. And it was approved. And so I was very fortunate. The Clifton practice in Bristol supported this study and lent us some rooms and gave us contacts. And so we were able to get things up and running really, really quickly. And the study was more than what I presented at the conference. We had some other measures around kind of, some anxiety scaling and some qualitative interviews. So how was it like, you know, what was it like going through the research process? What was it like wearing the kit? You know, what was it like receiving therapy? So we had lots of other data as well. But for 2 of their sessions, the clients got to wear the kit and to see what was going on in the brain. And it was fantastic. I think, you know, I was very keen to make sure that I didn't introduce too much bias to the study because I knew what I wanted to see. And so to make sure that I didn't just see what I wanted to see, I had a couple of people attached to the study who knew nothing about it, couldn't care less about it, you know, just got paid a little bit just to look at the numbers. And they came up with the answer I was hoping for, which was rather nice because part of me was really, really hoping to see what I could see and to actually have people who, like I say, have no interest in the study at all to actually say, yeah, you're right, this is what's going on. It was really exciting. And so, yes, I've got some pictures, which I think we can have a look at to see what's going on in the brain.
Shall I do that? Shall I do that now for you?
Sure.
Please.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, bear with me. I hope this works.
So if we go to the first of those slides with the different colours on, so back a couple, there we go, perfect. So if you, move forward one, thanks Aisha.
All right.
That's all right, perfect, thank you. So this is a snapshot of the kind of images that we're able to see of what's going on in the brain. We collect EEG data, and EEG is electrical, so electroencephalo, which is brain, gram, graph. So EEG is a graph of the electrical activity in the brain. And then it can be put through some software which kind of generates these rather nice images that we've got here. And what we've got here is 4 images of the brain. You can see the nose is at the top, so it's kind of looking down on the top of the head. And each of these reflects a different brainwave, and you'll be able to see on the screen that there's alpha, beta, theta, and delta. Alpha is the bottom left image, beta bottom right, theta top right, and delta top left. What we can see here is levels of activity. So if you treat these like a thermal map, then blue is cold, red is hot. So blue is low energy, red is lots of energy. Okay, so for instance, the beta activity we're seeing there bottom right, not a great deal going on, which we're pleased about because hopefully this person's nice and relaxed. So we're hoping not to see too much beta. We can see quite a nice amount of alpha there in bottom left. So the colours are warming up through sort of green and yellow and a touch of orangey red. So the person is producing lots of alpha waves, which is really nice. Top right, we've got a little pulse there of red in theta. And that just shows that something is going on. The person is thinking about something. Perhaps they are weighing up the conversation and working out what to do with it. And then the top left, the delta brainwaves, a little bit of warmth there, shows the person's nice and relaxed. So this person's quite happy sitting there, having a little think. Probably about why they've got this strange thing on their head, but that's okay. So if we go on to the next picture, you can see that's the same as the other one. So we've got brain at rest, nice and comfortable.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Yeah, it's just to reaffirm that does show the brain at rest. So then the next one shows something a little bit more interesting. And what we've got here is a lot of alpha. You see that brain in the bottom left, and it's really glowing red, isn't it? There's a lot of activity there all the way around. And you know what's nice about that is alpha is it's a lovely brainwave. It's really nice when you're at a party, you're chatting, you're feeling good. That's alpha. You're in the groove. You know, you're having a lovely time. And alpha is also associated with kind of thinking about things. So where we've got the alpha at the front, and you can see particularly on the left-hand side there, before the person has kind of got the kit on, we've had a full solution-focused conversation with them. So they've got something they want to change in mind, and we've used preferred future miracle questioning to kind of just assemble that preferred future, the place they want to be. And what we can see here is perhaps that person is thinking about the changes they'd like to make. So at this point, we've got lots of activity, particularly on the left-hand side, which is really coming up with ideas of how things might be different. And so we can see that people who are good at coming up with lots of ideas actually typically do show lots of healthy activity in that part of the brain. And you can think about it perhaps as having your own library or resource. So a problem comes up and you've got to fix it, you've got to solve it. And the way you do that is to have a dig around in the brain and think, have I done this before? Do I know if somebody else has dealt with this before? Have I read about something that tells me a good way to deal about this, with this thing? And so we dig around for ideas. Often when we see clients, they've got an idea of how to fix things and they've been using it, but it hasn't been as useful as it could be. And so our conversation helps that person dig a little deeper. And so instead of doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different outcome, they start thinking, okay, maybe actually, yeah, if I did empty the shed, clear the shed, whatever it is, actually I would feel happier, because then I'd know that that job was done, and then I'd be going to work tomorrow and I'd know that I didn't have to do that. And when I come home later with the new lawnmower, there's a place for it, instead of thinking I'll just chuck it in the garage as usual. And so, even the tiniest life change that somebody's looking to make, if we can help them dig around a bit for a different solution, then they're more likely to come up with something different, and that might be helpful. So this is really nice to see this evidence here that this is what the person's doing. They're digging around, looking for some way of solving the problem. You'll see there's the same spot, but not nearly so much activity in beta, and that's part of the activity of looking to find that solution. And then again, you can see in theta, we've got a little spike of activity there, which is really nice. Perhaps let's have a little look at the next slide and see what happens there.
Rachel, before we move on to the next slide, Gil Green has a question for you.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just going to read it because I can't put it on screen. Rachel, when a part of the brain lights up, does that mean that part of the brain is more active?
Yes.
That there has been an increase of blood to that area?
Okay, so this, yes and no. Well, we don't know about the second part of that question. Because we're measuring electrical activity here, I don't have the evidence for blood flow to that area. You would need a different measuring tool. So you'd be looking at some way of scanning, perhaps looking at an injection of dye and tracking it on an X-ray or MRI to look at blood flow to the area. So what I have here is electrical activity. And yes, red, more active, more electrical activity. Your neurons are being stimulated. They're busy, busy, busy when they're in the red. And that's what's happening in that part there.
This where
one more.
Oh, go on.
Sorry, Joe. I have one more question. So Joy is asking, I've just come into this and she's really enjoying it. How about when someone feels sad? How does that look?
So we have also had a good play around with this. And we look at people when they're listening to music, eating chocolate, drinking coffee, typical things that we do during the day. And it's great fun to see what happens in the brain. Now, in terms of feeling sad, there's a difference between feeling sad and, say, feeling depressed. We know that when somebody's feeling depressed, we often see what we might call a flattening of emotion and the ability to kind of engage with things. It would be really interesting to have a look to see if we can detect that on here. For the purpose of this study, we had people without health conditions and so on in order to collect the first amount of data. But given the changes I've seen when people listen to their favourite music or eat their favourite food, I think we would see a difference for sure.
The previous slide to this one. Sorry, So
yeah.
Obviously, the red areas are where there's increased electrical activity in the brain. So where someone's thinking, looking for a route or planning. In this situation, is this where the client's been asked to think of their best hope and what we're showing here?
So at this stage, they're being given the suggestion that things can change. So during this study, all of our participants were in trance. For one reason, we use trance in our work as hypnotherapists, so we were interested to see what happens. The other reason is this equipment's very sensitive to muscle movement. So when somebody talks, swallows, blinks, moves their head, it picks up on that. So what we did is we had people in a light trance, and they were hearing these suggestions, these kind of concepts around, you can do this, you can change things if you want to, you know how to find the solutions to your concerns. Paraphrasing, obviously, we're kind of a bit more sophisticated than that, but for the purpose of this presentation, those suggestions are being made. And so this is looking at how the brain responds to those suggestions and what it's doing in the background without, if you like, the kind of electrical noise that we gather when people are talking and thinking. That's actually the next step, is to work out a way to do this while people talk and to be able to cut out the interference that happens with the kit.
So almost like cutting out the background noise and just focusing.
Yeah, exactly. And I just need someone young and clever to know how to do that. I'll write a good reference.
Wow. So this is the next slide.
Yeah, this is really nice, this. Where we had all the activity on the left-hand side, where the person was kind of thinking about the problem and delving into their resource kit to see possible ways of doing it. In order to solve a problem, you must be able to, one, come up with ideas on how to solve the problem. And two, you've got to be able to evaluate those ideas for usefulness. It's all very well coming up with a solution to a problem, but if it doesn't actually solve that problem, that you picked on something slightly random or something slightly, disconnected from the issue, then that idea, although nice to get, actually isn't helpful. So when a person is evaluating the usefulness of that idea, what we see is a lot of activity pinging between the left and right frontal areas of the brain. So idea generation pinging on the left, idea evaluation happening across the front. So what's really nice is we've got evidence here of the person coming up with ideas and kind of running them through, testing them to see whether they're going to be of any use or not. Because the person who thinks, well, maybe I will clear out the shed, might have decided, you know what, if I just push that tent to one side, I reckon I could get the lawnmower in the garage.
Save me some
Not
work.
realizing the kind of conversation he's going to have later with his wife when she says, yes, but this garage is full. Come on, empty it. But the person has probably tested lots of different ideas. And this is what we can see here happening in the alpha area. The person is focused on the problem, the suggestions rather are saying, you can come up with something. I know you can. If you just think about it a little bit differently, I know you can come up with this. And they're working hard at this point in time to test the usefulness of all the ideas that are coming up. And what's really nice is that this starts to demonstrate something called creativity. And what we're looking for in our clients, like I mentioned earlier, is to come up with a different way of doing things, a different way of thinking about things, because the way they're doing it right now isn't helpful for them, and that's why they've come to see us. The more we use solution-focused conversation, the more we're stimulating this ability to try a few ideas out in your mind and evaluate them, see if they're any good. And we're building up the person's ability to be more creative. And that, I think, is really fascinating, because creativity matters so much. If we keep looking at our lives in the same way, we're going to always come up with the same conclusion. And yet, if we can see the joy, if we can see the skills that we have, if we can see the strengths that our children have, if we can see the particular qualities of our partner, our home life improves enormously. And although one of us is still out of work, or there's still a car that needs MOTing and we just can't get it done yet. And although there's all the niggly everyday problems of life, once we start thinking more creatively about our family, home life improves. And we feel more courageous, and we feel that we have more resilience in the face of adversity. So I'm very excited about that, as you can tell.
Yeah, and that creative thinking is kind of opening up possibilities that maybe
It
were.
really is.
And the area at the back of the brain, Rachel, in that bottom left, seems very, very active. What is that telling us?
The person is literally seeing themselves doing these things. So that part of the brain is visual processing. So whether they're aware of it or not, there is a lot of visual imagery being put about in terms of thinking about how they're going to solve that problem. And, it's a lot of people say they don't dream. A lot of people say they don't see things, when they relax, they follow a self-hypnosis or a meditation, and they go on a journey through the woods or wherever they go, and they don't see themselves doing it. And yet, we had people in this study who said, yes, I dream a lot, and others who said, no, I never see anything in my dreams. And these pictures represent what typically happens. And so either way of, believing that you are a visual or not visual person, it's still being triggered. It's still happening in the brain.
And we're asking about the problem. Would that area of the brain, would that be as lit up as that? I'm guessing not.
Well, we're very familiar with our problems, aren't we? Much more so than with our solutions. And so often we've told the story of our problem to ourselves over and over, and to everybody who'll listen over and over again. So we have a very clear image of that problem. Every time we recall a problem, the image comes to the fore, we can see that problem happening. We can see it happening. And so we would still see areas of activation at the back of the brain there. But the reason we're interpreting the activity at the front of the brain is because we know what's being said at the time. So every single person in this study heard exactly the same things in exactly the same way. It was a recording. And so we know it's in response to what's being said.
The next.
Actually, before we go on to the next slide,
Yeah,
let's
sure.
just talk a little bit about the theta there, because you can see again there's some nice activity there. And theta waves, really interesting. Every time we think creatively, then the theta, which is the top right image, we'll get a pulse of theta. And that is really nice. It's associated with cognitive control. So less likely to be impulsive, less likely to choose a knee-jerk reaction as a solution, much more likely to choose a thought-through solution, which is what we're looking for.
Rachel, I have another. I think I'm echoing. I have another question from Gil. Rachel, could it be said that doing this, the solution-oriented strengthens existing neural pathways and/or creates new neural pathways?
So this is really interesting. While I was doing this work, I was chatting with a friend of mine who's a neuroscientist and saying, look, what's going on? Are we getting new pathways? Are we strengthening pathways? What's actually happening here? And she had a look at the data and she said, the activity that's happening sort of behind the right eye, that activity that you can see there in the front right of the brain. She said it's unlikely within a few minutes that you're creating any new pathways. It takes a while to create a new pathway. But what it seems to be doing is, let's imagine that inside your head, you've got a tin full of Lego bricks. Depending on how old you are, that was either a family circle tin or it might be something else now. But there was always this tin in the cupboard and it had Lego bricks and probably a marble and some other stuff in there as well. And every time you encounter a problem, you put the bits of Lego together in the same way. And if you keep putting the bits of Lego together in the same way, you'll only ever come to the same place. Now, what seems to be happening here is that the Lego bricks are kind of being jiggled about in the tin, and you're starting to put them together in a different way. And whereas first you were producing perhaps a wall of Lego, now you're producing a house, and the walls are connected and it has structural integrity. Because by learning to overlap the bits of Lego, you create a stronger structure. And so what she says this is, it is about putting things together in a different way. Now, what we notice is that the more often somebody uses solution-focused techniques, that they start thinking about things in a different way, the easier it becomes to think in a different way. And another analogy there might be waking up in the morning, it's so exciting, it's snowed. And so you grab your sledge and up you go to the hill and you get on top and you slide all the way down to the bottom. And it's exhilarating and exciting, but you know, it's kind of different. The snow is fresh. But you think to yourself, I know what, I'm going to go up and do that again. And if you go back up to the top of the hill and you find your groove, you get on your sledge and you slide down again. And this time it's quicker. And this time it's, you know, more exciting because you get to the bottom quicker. And so you think, I'm going to do that again. And so you climb back up to the top of the hill, get back on your sledge and go all the way back down to the bottom. And after a while, that groove is really, really fast. What we can find is that people sometimes need to find a new groove. And through using solution-focused conversation, we can climb back to the top of that hill and we can turn around and select another bit of snow. And we can start creating a new groove that results in a new way of thinking. So over time, we would get stronger neural pathways. Over time, we might get better connected neural pathways. We might have much more of a network rather than a single groove. Perhaps it actually becomes something quite complicated, like you might see at the local pool with all the slides all interacting with each other. That research is yet to be done. And I think it would be absolutely marvelous to see whether we're right in thinking that we are creating a new groove. And by doing so, the person finds that way of thinking easier and each time they take that route. That would take better equipment than I've got. But, you know, somebody listening to this might get really excited about it and have the kit available. So maybe we'll be able to answer that in a few years' time.
I guess.
Shall I move on to the next slide?
Yeah, go on.
So, have we got creativity? Creativity, like I say, requires idea generation and idea evaluation. Coming to a solution can take two journeys. One can be the very logical, coming up with ideas, evaluating those ideas, seeing which seems to be most useful and picking that one. And essentially that's what we were seeing on that previous slide. We're getting all that energy in terms of idea generation, idea evaluation, and then kind of working your way through to work out which one is best. And that can feel like quite a conscious decision when we're trying to work out, you know, I don't know, the answer in a crossword puzzle. Sometimes we have to look at the letters that are already there and make sure the answer fits in with that, and then it doesn't. And then we've got to work out whether this answer is wrong, or whether the other answer is wrong. And it can take quite a kind of conscious effort to fill in the pieces. Now, there are other ways of coming to an answer, and that is through a different way of thinking. There's evidence to suggest that people who are more creative have many more kind of networks and much more activity kind of around the brain, connecting the back of the brain to the front of the brain, really kind of nice, smooth pathways to our library, to our store of information. So when we're required to come up with an answer, we can. Now, there are times when we're thinking about something from work, we haven't come up with the right solution. And then we get in the car, or we get on our bike, or we get on our feet and go home. We walk, we cycle, we drive. And we can be thinking about something completely different. And suddenly an idea pops into our head. And it could be anything at all. It could be like, oh, rats, there's a family birthday today. I need to get a cake. And we'll think, right, that's okay, because there's a supermarket on the way past, so we can quickly get everything, and we'll turn up with a cake and look like a really good parent, and that we've remembered this thing, and aren't we great? Perhaps our partners think we're absolutely marvelous for remembering this thing, but we've actually forgotten about it all day, but it popped into our minds on the way home while we were disengaged, I guess, and just kind of daydreaming and, thinking about other things. And what we see in the brain when that happens is that very clear spike, and you can see it happening here in terms of the creativity on the right-hand side of the brain. So both the alpha and the theta are coming up with lots of energy there on the right-hand side of the brain. Yes, there's activity on the left and the back, and but you can see there's a real cluster there of energy on the right. And that is the moment at which we think we've got the answer. And this is different to a knee-jerk reaction. So a knee-jerk reaction, we're under stress, somebody puts us on the spot, and we have to come up with an answer straight away. This comes from the kind of daydreaming, the mind wandering, the thinking about something else, and suddenly we'll think, oh, I know the answer to that. You can be doing a pub quiz and you can't get the answer. And then as they come through and they're starting to do the answers, but you've already submitted your answers, you think, oh, I know who it was. That was King Henry the whatever. He did that, didn't he? Way too late to be useful in that situation. But, that's how the brain works sometimes. It's because you're not thinking about it that often you find the answer to it. And that's what we're seeing here, this enormous amount of both alpha and theta activity, getting that brain into a place where it's going to come up with that instant answer. And the point at which we come up with that answer is in the next slide. There it is. This is what we call the eureka moment, that final, aha, I got it. I know what needs to happen now. And there it is. And it's absolutely fascinating to see this in our little study that we put together so quickly, that we've got this eureka moment happening. So after your best hopes, after your scaling, after your preferred future, you sit back and relax, and suggestions of a similar nature are made to you. That eureka moment will happen. And so our client knows now what needs to be done, what needs to change. And what I love about this is that it may not be the thing they thought it was going to be. And that's often the case in our work, isn't it? That even with the preferred future, they talk quite clearly about the changes that will happen and what will be noticed and this and that. And then something altogether different might happen. But there we go. The brain picked it. This is the thing that will happen now. So exciting. And all of this completely backed up by other research papers that talk about creativity and inspiration and daydreaming and all of those things in this talk. And if anybody would like to get in touch, I've got the references that back this all up. So
the other areas of the other pictures also show more activity in this moment, don't they?
Yeah.
I think the previous slide, the others were a bit darker, but
This is really
If I go back
distinct.
to the, if I go back to the first slide.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah. You know, you can just see, can't you? This is nice and relaxed. And then as the brain engages with the conversation, look at it go.
If you go back to the creativity one, one backwards. Yeah. Especially, is it? Yeah. So the go forward again.
That one, yeah.
More activity in the delta waves as well.
Yeah, there's a little bit of movement in delta. What you find with these, when you see live video of this, there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of flowing in and out. You know, it takes then further analysis to extract what's happening kind of in these moments. But yeah, the deltas, the person's lovely and relaxed. They're really happy doing what they're doing. Quite content to be thinking this thing through. So really nice, really nice.
Next slide, Aish. I think that was the.
That's that, yeah.
So, I mean, absolutely fascinating there. So, I mean, we often, I mean, hope is something huge.
So you keep cutting out.
Oh, am I cutting out? Yeah. So, creativity and hope, is it that kind of almost what we're seeing in the brain when we get that creativity going, that there's some hopefulness that things can be better?
Well, this is it, isn't it, Joe? You know, because to have hope means that you know that things can be different. You might not know how yet or what, you know, what you're going to do to make that happen. But you know there's a spark in there, isn't there, that things can be different. And with this work, seeing the importance of solution-focused conversation in stimulating creative ways of thinking about something means that we're going to see, you know, through preferred future and so on, we're looking at how that best hope might be realized. But what we're seeing here is that the way it's being realized is through activating the creativity mechanisms in the brain. And I think just putting the two together is fabulous.
So, after a session, our
Sorry,
client,
Joe.
oh, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. After a session, our clients could be walking down the road and suddenly have that eureka moment, and it may not even be something that happened in session.
Yeah.
A bit like when you're stuck on a word in a crossword and you put it down and you go back to it and you think, do that.
That's what it was. That's what it was. Yes. Yeah, the brain is working away in the background.
Mm. So, Gil,
we have a yeah, Joe, I'll read it because you keep cutting out. Rachel, do you have any comparison data on how the brain reacts to non-solution focused conversations or suggestions?
So we have some images and some data on how the brain responds to stress and how it responds to reward. So, for instance, we like to set something like what we call a maths stress test. So you'd say to them, right, can you count backwards in multiples of 17s from 543? And surprisingly, most people find that really stressful.
Yeah,
We kind of
stressed
set it
already.
up. Yeah, exactly. In fact,
I'm stressed. I'm leaving.
You're trying to breathe now. Just, actually, for most people, it's a really challenging task. But of course, it pings the stress in them. Oh my gosh, I'm back at school now. I don't like this, And so we can detect what happens in the brain when they feel stressed. As we see an enormous amount of activity all around the brain going, what's going on? What's going on? I'm not sure. And then we can have them kind of thinking about that, and perhaps we can put some music on that they like, that they find relaxing, and we can see all the activity kind of coming back down again. So that is really nice to see. We can see kind of the reward areas of the brain activating when we give them a little bit of chocolate or something that they like. We can see that happening as well. I think it'd be really interesting to see what happens in the brain comparing different therapeutic styles, because I think that might be interesting to see if it is just our style of doing things that does this, and to see what happens when people undergo a conversation that perhaps has a different focus or different therapeutic style. I think that'd be really interesting.
We need to get you some research grants.
Rachel, can you talk to us a little bit about Joe, you keep cutting out.
All right.
Rachel, can you talk to us a little bit about the training and everything else that you're offering? 'Cause I know a lot of people want to get in touch with you. What is it? How can they get in touch and what can you offer?
Amazing, thank you. So the websites are there at the bottom of the screen. So just click on those and see what we do. I'm director of the Clinical Hypnotherapy School, and we deliver training on all things, both SFBT and hypnosis oriented, to help people with all sorts of things. We have a diploma in medical hypnotherapy, which again uses both hypnosis and SFBT approaches to work with everything from needle phobia to experiencing perhaps an MRI scan, through to receiving medical treatment, so perhaps for chemotherapy, radiotherapy. And we also support therapists in learning how to work with clients who are looking at palliative care and end of life. And so we have developed a whole series of modules, and certificates and the like that can support you in your work with clients with various medical and health needs. We also have a lot of work, we have modules on working with diverse populations and neurodiversity, and also self-care of the therapist, how we look after ourselves in sessions that might be more challenging than others. So that's the Clinical Hypnotherapy School. We deliver supervision as well. So if you're looking for solution-focused approaches to supervision in your practice, then we do that too. If you want to get in touch with me, then the Seaview Therapies web link there is me. And so I run a busy practice seeing clients face-to-face on Zoom like this now, and also deliver some supervision, but also I do some consultancy work. So I'm currently advising a company on incorporating solution-focused approaches into the care of people pre and post-surgery. So really interesting work that I'm doing there, and they're building up apps. And so we've got nice solution-focused questions in apps that people can use to improve their health journey and their illness journey. So do get in touch. Any questions or any ideas or thoughts that you have, I'd be really happy to talk to you.
Joe, I know you're dying to say something, so do you want to? I'll talk over you if I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Keep breaking, but
yeah. It's just as fascinating as the first time I met you, Rachel. Absolutely. Because it would be really interesting with that research where you were talking about guessing how many times we have to make that groove before it becomes automatic, almost like a habit becomes automatic. How we've solved a particular problem so that we don't go back, because often we have setbacks, don't we? Because we go with what's familiar.
Yeah, of course we do. And that's our comfort zone, isn't it? And it's important to recognize the courage that our clients show in coming to us, to think about things differently, to be put outside that comfort zone, if you like. They've got a familiar way of thinking and doing things, and to have the courage to say to somebody, I think I need to be doing things differently, and to take that on. And I know that a lot of us work a great deal with rapport. We work very hard to ensure that our clients feel comfortable talking with us, and that we're great listeners in our work. We talk about conversation, but actually I guess it's almost solution-focused listening at times, isn't it? It's very much appreciative of the client's story and where they've come from. And Yeah, sorry, I was just going to say, I think it would be really interesting to know how long it takes for that groove to really become embedded.
Oh, Gil got another question.
Rachel,
I see
where
it.
is some of your work published? Journal, articles, books?
Okay, so if you go on my website, there's a section that is publications and resources. So just click on there, go to the resources. There's various audio recordings and PowerPoint presentations and books that you can buy and all of those things. So yeah, click on my website, cbtherapist.com, and it's all there.
And the app?
Yes.
The app you were talking about?
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I know Helen. Yes, the app is looking really useful. There's a lot of research into mobile technologies, mobile health technologies, and how they can support people. And I think a lot of that work's been accelerated in the last few months as people have been unable to do real face-to-face consultations. And so the apps, yes, they're going to be really interesting to see how they work, what level of engagement is. There's a whole research team behind that in looking at usability and acceptability and all of those things. So it's going to be really interesting to see how that goes over the next year or so.
Very busy, Rachel.
I'm quite busy, yeah. I get excited by things, and I say, yes, that sounds great.
Has there been any research?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having.
Sorry.
Go on.
Has there been any research, Rachel, on people that may be on the spectrum in a way that focus can support?
So neurodiversity is really, really interesting. And there's a lot of research looking into how different brains react differently. And for instance, you mentioned autism spectrum disorder and how a person might respond differently there. There's a lot of it coming about. What's interesting is that this research used to be incredibly expensive. And you guys know, you've kind of seen the kit that I use. It's now become very affordable. And so research groups can now do a lot more with smaller pots of money, which is the way things have gone, of course, recently. And so we're seeing a lot more research come out. If anybody's interested in looking at the latest findings on anything, rather than use Google Scholar, because that produces academic results, if you like. So it's peer-reviewed papers. So type in Google Scholar into your search engine, and that will come up with all the academic papers. Put in exactly what you're interested in, and it will come up. There's a whole world of research out there. So keep exploring the areas that you love and that are of interest for you. It's out there.
Look that up.
Just as Joe and I did last year at Bath, after your workshop, we left, met with our two colleagues that were with us, and we just couldn't talk, we couldn't speak. They said, well, "What's going on?" So it was just brilliant. Well, what was brilliant about it? I can't explain it to you because you had to be there. It was just brilliant, and your mind, and this happened, and they're like, "What?" But you just had to be there, which is why it's so brilliant that you're here with us today to kind of share this with everybody. And I know a lot of people really benefited from this. But equally, even though I've kind of heard this, I'm sitting here just going, wow, this is just brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant again. It's really, really cool.
It is cool though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Joe, are you going to attempt to say something before you break up?
No, just to thank you again. Like I said before,
It's
always
really, really cool and very interesting to everyone.
Yeah, well, I hope so. Thanks for the opportunity, because this opens up this material to a broader audience, and hopefully this will inspire. Yeah. I think this will inspire people to get excited about what's happening, in the brain. And I think everybody that I speak to just loves this stuff, and I love it too. And yeah, thank you, Gil. There's a really good couple of sources there, ResearchGate and academia.edu as well. And you know, it's great to be able to talk about this stuff and get people excited. And I'm always really excited to hear your comments and thoughts on it, and ideas for taking it further as well, because you know that's always good to hear, and thoughts about, well, what if and what if. And so yeah, you know, really thank you guys for letting me talk about this today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're honoured. And that's it. We've come to the end of today's FBS chat, and thank you very much to Rachel. Speechless. Thank you. Excellent. I can't wait to share it and upload it onto YouTube, where you guys can find it and rewatch, or share the link with whoever you might feel like training, reading the books, or getting in touch with Rachel. So next week we have Emma Burns and Pamela King joining us. Fantastic therapists, love them very much, love their work, as we do with everyone, really. Everyone is fantastic in their own right. So Rachel, you are a superstar. Can I just ask that you stay there? Don't press any buttons. Everyone's saying thank you, thank you, thank you. Stay there. And from us, it's goodbye.